Every second, your intestines act as a biological command center, a master switchboard continuously transmitting physical and chemical data directly to your reproductive organs. When someone develops PCOS, the issue rarely begins with a physical flaw in the ovaries themselves. It functions as a systemic network failure, where these essential signals misfire and severely degrade. When the network degrades, instructions fail to reach their destination. The ovaries receive scrambled signals, triggering metabolic and hormonal disruptions. To repair these crossed wires, trillions of gut microbes act as system engineers, actively catching dropped signals to maintain transmission clarity. Because of this deep connection, managing PCOS requires stepping away from the ovaries and looking at the gut, where the broken communication network actually begins. These microbial engineers are responsible for delivering the specific building materials your body needs to prepare for a pregnancy. A 2026 clinical trial led by Tahera Berrouzi-Ulak tested this by working with women with PCOS who were candidates for an IUI fertility procedure. Over an 8-week period, researchers provided targeted protocols to strictly strengthen the patient's gut microbiome and observed how it influenced their reproductive environment. As this schematic illustrates, optimizing that intestinal workforce led to a measurable expansion in the patient's endometrial thickness. A thick, receptive endometrial lining is the foundational requirement for an embryo to successfully implant and sustain a long-term pregnancy. The intestinal command center dictates the structural readiness of the reproductive system, physically shifting the uterine environment into a state that is receptive to pregnancy. But that receptivity is easily compromised. High insulin levels act like a massive power surge flowing through the body, creating intense metabolic noise that drowns out normal reproductive signals. This surge allows pathogenic gut bacteria to thrive and release a structure compound called lipopolysaccharides, or LPS, directly into the bloodstream. You can think of LPS as toxic grit. It escapes the intestines and travels to the ovaries, where these jagged particles trigger acute internal inflammation. A 2026 study by Liu and colleagues mapped exactly how this inflammatory heat physically damages a developing egg, or oocyte. In this diagram, we see the protective follicular fluid that surrounds an egg. Metabolomic analysis proved that as LPS drives up the temperature indicator, the resulting heat physically fractures the molecular structures inside that fluid. The presence of those broken molecules confirms that intestinal dysbiosis directly impairs egg quality at the cellular level. Clearing this grit requires an upgrade to the microbiome to establish new pathways that bypass the damaged circuits. This diagram shows beneficial microbes establishing a clean route for data transmission around the red, blocked nodes. As these routes open, microbes regulate bile acids. These chemical lubricants wash away the LPS grit, cooling the inflammatory response to baseline. To accelerate this reset, time-restricted feeding can be used to silence the disruptive feedback of negative metabolites. Temporarily cutting the power to the digestive process allows the microbial engineers the necessary downtime to repair communication lines without active interference. Combining microbial fortification with scheduled digestive rest forces a hard reset on the switchboard, transforming the toxic environment back into a functional network. Once the major blockages are cleared, the reproductive signals require precise fine-tuning to lock in reliable transmission. Compounds like vitamin D, myo-inositol, and omega-3s serve as the precision tools needed for the final hardware patch. Look at the way this fluctuating wave is compressed and smoothed into a rhythmic oscillation. These nutrients perform a similar function, stabilizing hormone synthesis and smoothing out the pathways. With the interference cleared, the system reaches a point of stability. Insulin markers normalize, the inflammatory response quiets, and data flows reliably from the gut straight to the ovaries. PCOS functions as a persistent signal interference issue, one that can be addressed by stabilizing the intestinal switchboard that manages these communications.